Hi, besties. I just finished reading It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and I have a lot of opinions, and a short form TikTok or reel just doesn't cut it because there's a lot to talk about. So there's actually so much to talk about that I wrote notes to make sure I don't forget anything. So just starting off with my rating, I'm giving it 4.7. Some 5 stars out of 5. It's really not that hard for me to rate something 5 stars. If I like it, then you get 5 stars. So, but in terms of the plot, there's actually a lot, so I'm gonna let you guys look up what it's about. And if you're interested, make sure to look at the trigger warnings because there's a few. It's pretty mature material, so just so you know. So starting off with the characters, we have Lily, and one of the things that I noticed is that we're very alike. She has a business degree, she worked in marketing, I work in marketing, and just the way that she rationalizes, like the way that we justify is very similar. Yeah. We're very similar. As for Ryle, right, so Ryle is the neurosurgeon, like he's the love interest in the present. He's a neurosurgeon, he's 29, he's written to be on the surface perfect, so it's very cheesy. One of the things that I realize is like, he goes to talk about, I've never had a girlfriend, I'm like not interested in serious relationships, I'm not interested in getting married, and then he meets her and then suddenly he is. I'm not buying it. And so I thought, okay, this man definitely has some sort of ulterior motive, like he's the villain, but like how? No, he didn't have an ulterior motive. He just had red flags, and then suddenly, I don't know. That was very confusing to me. Yeah, so his character just seemed really unrealistic, and the author, Colleen Hoover, has the tendency of just introducing things and then never really, like, they're not relevant to the story. So, like, when we meet Ryle, he's, like, smoking pot, and then he never smokes pot again in the rest of the book. That was weird. And the same thing with the roommate. Like, the roommate sings all the time, and then it's not relevant. That was weird. Anyway, next character, Atlas. So I think he's the most interesting character of the main 3. And he's homeless in his senior year of high school, and that's how he meets Lily. I thought it was very interesting because I know about homelessness, but I didn't know about homelessness. And I got to see it, or a glimpse of it. But I wish that we could have explored his journey a little more. Like, there were some loose ends, like, what happened to his mother? Like, after he enrolled in the military and he left, like, did he ever try to reconnect with her ever again? Like, what happened to his stepfather? Like, what happened to the uncle that was in Boston? Like, that's the whole thing. That's why they're in Boston, is because Ryle's uncle is there. So that was weird. That's it for the characters. Going into the plot. I'm used to fantasy and romance and, like, sci-fi. So, like, outrageous plot lines. And this plot and the pacing of the plot was a lot slower than what I'm used to. So I really had to take a step back and experience, like, the relationship from the beginning, from the moment that they met to the very end. I'll try to keep spoilers to a minimum, but yeah, to the very end. And that was new for me. So, but sometimes I got lost in the timeline. So my suggestion for Colleen, which she's never going to see this video, but my suggestion is to include, like, the month and the year at the very beginning of the chapter, because she'll say, and 3 months later, and I'm like, we were back in August, like, what happened? So it was kind of hard to like keep track. And finally, my takeaways. There's a lot. But the first one is that it's a really great book from a writer who's never gone through domestic abuse before. Not that I've ever experienced it, not that I would want to share with a ton of people, but she's, it's a very good book, but it's missing a layer. It's missing a layer as to the fear that you actually feel when it comes to domestic abuse. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, it's missing a layer because in the book, she's exclusively physically, like, battered. Like, she's attacked, right? Ryle attacks her. But the thing about domestic violence is that it almost always, if not always, preceded by verbal abuse. And he never, like, does anything regarding that. Not saying that he has to. It's not necessarily something pleasant to include, but I just thought that was noteworthy. It's not like it's only physical domestic abuse. It's not verbal. It's not economic abuse either. So thought that was weird. Okay, editing Allie here. I just wanted to jump on here to mention that like in addition to everything I just said, what I think is missing is the fact that a lot of men, a lot of abusers are really vicious, right? Like in the book, she's only physically abused, but physical abuse goes hand in hand with psychological and verbal abuse. And he he gaslits her once, but he's also lying to himself. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, he doesn't ever, like, question her... That was cute. He doesn't ever question her, like her own, he doesn't ever question her, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Another thing is that it has a perfect ending. Like, it doesn't include any, like, courtroom, it doesn't include, like, the implications of divorce, it doesn't include, like, a custody battle. It has a perfect ending with a perfect agreement. And it just doesn't happen that way, not in real life. And the third thing is this book sort of put a mirror up to me, and I had to ask myself, if I were put in this position, would I be brave and bold enough to leave? I don't think so. That's just, it's hard. And it takes a certain amount of strength that I know I don't have. So I guess I have to work on that. Another thing is that it takes place in Boston, which, why? I mean, I love Boston. It's a great city. I love visiting. And I'm glad it's not in New York because New York is overdone and cheesy and cliche. But I just wanted to know, like, why Boston? Another thing is that I can tell that this book was written before the Dakota Johnson interview came out with Ellen, because Ellen is a huge, like, symbol. She's somewhat apotheosized throughout the story. So, yeah, I thought that was also noteworthy. Like, why Ellen? I mean, she explains why, but, like, still. Oh my gosh, I don't have that much time left. But another thing is, like, they have this whole thing with, like, naked truths, right? Oh, and, like, what's your naked truth? Whenever she gets attacked by Ryle, she's always, like, naked or undressed somehow. Like, she's never fully clothed. And I wanted to point that out because this shit keeps cutting me off. I'm almost done. Yeah, she's almost always naked or somewhat undressed whenever she has a fight with Ryle. It's usually because it's right before they practice making children. if you get what I mean. But yeah, I thought it was interesting, the naked truths and her being undressed and never him for some reason. And finally, the last thing I wanted to close with is the water motif. If you don't know what a motif is, I'll tell you what it is. A motif is essentially like an extended symbol throughout an entire piece of literary work. In this case, it had to deal with water, the ocean, swimming. They have this whole thing like with Ellen, finding Nemo, like, oh, just keep swimming, and then the ending line spoiler, the ending line in the book is you can stop swimming now, Lily. We finally reached the shore. I thought that was really interesting. So if you ever read the book, you can start catching references to water, references to waves, references to cleansing, like rebirth. One of the things that you learn once you start reading is the importance of water, when it comes to like baptizing someone, like rebirth. It doesn't always have to be like Christianity, but like being like a new person, a new entity. So yeah, water motif. That's it. I'll shut up now. Thank you.